Don't sign anything until I get there. That was the last voicemail Oscar left me. My brother. 43 seconds of him breathing heavy into his phone, tires screaming somewhere in the background, his voice doing that thing it does when he's trying not to sound scared. I didn't listen to it until after I'd already signed. My name is Matt Ford. I'm 58 years old, and 3 months ago, I was worth $2 million. Not rich, not yacht money, but I'd spent 31 years building a landscaping company from a single rusted truck and a handshake, and I was comfortable. My daughter was in her second year of nursing school. I had a house 2 blocks from Lake Michigan. I could sleep. Then my wife, Willa, introduced me to Alexander. He's brilliant, Matt. He turned Roger's retirement fund into something real. We should at least hear him out. Alexander Holt, financial advisor, custom suit, firm handshake, the kind of smile that makes you feel stupid for hesitating. He came to our kitchen table with a leather portfolio and a printed projection, 2 million becoming 4 in 18 months, guaranteed return, exclusive window, limited slots. Willa sat beside him nodding like she'd already decided. I should have asked more questions, I know that now. But Willa had been cold to me for a year, distant. And when she finally looked at me with something like warmth, something like excitement, I wanted to give her that. I wanted to be the man who said yes for once, instead of let me think about it. I signed the transfer authorization on a Tuesday morning. Alexander shook my hand. Willa made coffee. Everything felt fine. By Thursday, Alexander Holt didn't exist. No office, no license. The phone number disconnected. The firm name on his business card registered to a vacant lot in Schaumburg. Roger, the friend Willa had mentioned, told me he'd never heard of any Alexander Holt, never recommended anyone to us, never even had that conversation. I drove home to tell Willa. Her car was gone. Half the closet, empty. And on the kitchen counter, where she used to leave grocery lists, there was a single sheet of paper. Not coming back. Don't look for me. I'm sorry, Matt, but not sorry enough to stay. I sat down on the kitchen floor. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the coffee to go cold. Long enough for Oscar to call 6 times before I finally picked up. He was quiet for a moment after I told him everything. Then he said something that stopped my blood cold. Matt, I know who Alexander Holt really is, and if I'm right, Willa didn't just take your money. He paused. She's been planning this for 2 years. If you've ever trusted the wrong person, you know exactly how this floor feels. Drop the city you're watching from. I want to see how far Matt's story reaches. And if you want to find out what Oscar knows, tell me to keep going. She's been planning this for 2 years. I made Oscar say it again. I needed to hear it twice before my brain would even hold it. He told me to stay put. 40 minutes later, he was at my door, coat still on, a manila folder under his arm. Oscar works fraud investigation for the Cook County DA's office. He doesn't scare easy. But when I opened that door and saw his face, I knew this was bad in a way I hadn't let myself imagine yet. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where Alexander had laid out his portfolio, the same table where Willa had poured the coffee. He opened the folder. His real name is Roger Vane. I stared at him. Not the Roger you know, different man. He runs a network, moves city to city, targets couples with liquid assets, usually between 1 and 3 million. He's been doing it for 11 years, never arrested, never charged. Because he always works alone, Oscar said. He always has someone on the inside. It took me 4 full seconds to understand what he meant. Willa. Oscar didn't flinch. We think they've been together since before you 2 got back from Denver. That trip she took for her sister's thing? We pulled her phone records, Matt. She was in the same hotel with Vane for 3 nights. 3 nights. 2 years ago. I'd dropped her at O'Hare myself. Kissed her at the curb, told her to tell her sister I said happy birthday. I stood up, walked to the sink, stood there looking at the drain. The money, I said. Where is it? Moved fast, probably already split across 3 or 4 accounts overseas. That's how Vane operates. It's gone within 72 hours. Gone. $2 million. 31 years. I turned around. Then why are you showing me this? If you can't get it back, why are you here, Oscar? He closed the folder slowly. Because Willa made a mistake. He pulled out a single photograph, printed on plain paper, grainy, time-stamped from a parking garage camera on West 18th Street 4 days before Alexander came to my kitchen table. Willa, standing next to a woman I'd never seen before. Tall, red coat, face turned just enough away from the camera. "We don't know who she is yet," Oscar said, "but she showed up on 2 other cameras that same week, once outside your bank branch, once outside your daughter's nursing school." The air left the room. "Julia," I said. Oscar nodded. "We don't think they'd touch her, but Matt, whoever this woman is, she was doing reconnaissance on your whole life. That means this wasn't just about the money." The woman in the red coat. Oscar ran her through every database he had access to. She wasn't in any of them, which meant someone had scrubbed her clean, and that kind of clean costs more than $2 million to arrange. "Her name is Thora Vane." Oscar called me at 6 a.m., 3 days after he showed me the photograph. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours any night in between. Vane, same last name. His sister, younger by 4 years. She's the one who finds the targets. Roger moves the money, Thora moves the people. She's the one who decides who's worth running, how long, how deep. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark. She picked Willa. We think she recruited her, yes. Willa didn't stumble into this, Matt. She was chosen, vetted, trained, almost. Thora looks for a specific type. Someone already unhappy, already halfway out the door, someone who just needs to be shown a different ending to their story. I thought about the year before everything collapsed. Willa quiet at dinner. Willa on her phone in the car. Willa looking at me sometimes like I was furniture she was trying to decide whether to keep. I'd noticed. I just told myself it was a phase. "Where is she?" I asked. "Thora." Oscar went quiet for a second too long. "That's the problem." He told me to meet him, not at his office, at a diner on Western Avenue he'd been going to since he was a kid. Corner booth, bad coffee, the kind of place nobody important ever walks into. I was there in 20 minutes. He was already in the booth when I arrived, hands wrapped around a mug, looking like a man about to say something he'd rather not. Thora Vane was picked up 2 days ago. Customs flagged her at O'Hare trying to board a flight to Lisbon. "Good," I said. "She's already out." I put my coffee down. She had a lawyer there before they even finished processing her. Not a local guy, Matt. Federal Defense, Washington, D.C., the kind of firm that doesn't take a case unless there's serious money behind it. She walked out in under 4 hours, no charges filed, case transferred, and then the case file went quiet in a way that files don't go quiet on their own. Someone protected her. Oscar looked at me. Someone with reach? Which means Roger Vane and your $2 million. That's not the ceiling of this thing. That's the floor. I leaned back, looked at the ceiling. Some old Sinatra song was playing low on a radio behind a counter. "Oscar, what aren't you telling me?" He turned his coffee mug slowly in both hands, a habit he's had since we were kids. He only does it when the answer's going to cost something. "One of the names on Thora's legal team, I ran it." He slid his phone across the table. I looked at the screen. A law firm website. Clean, expensive, the kind of site that lists accolades instead of prices. Senior partner, photo. Gray suit, gray temples. Eyes that looked like they'd seen everything and been moved by none of it. His name was printed underneath in clean Sarah type. Roger A. Holt. Not Vane. Holt. I looked up at Oscar. "Alexander's last name," I said. "Wasn't a coincidence," Oscar said quietly. "Matt, I think Roger Vane isn't the top of this thing. I think he's someone's employee." The Sinatra song ended. The diner went quiet. And my phone buzzed on the table between us. Unknown number, one text. Back off, Mr. Ford. You can't afford what comes next. I looked at Oscar. He was already pulling out his badge. But whoever sent that message, they already knew exactly where I was sitting. Don't respond to it. Oscar snatched the phone off the table before I could even think about typing back. He turned it over in his hands, studying the number like it might say something else if he looked hard enough. Burner, he said, probably already dead by the time we trace it. Then trace it anyway. Oscar pocketed my phone and looked at me with the expression he used to give me when we were kids and I was about to do something that would get us both in trouble. Matt, I need you to listen to me right now and not just hear me. These people, whoever is above Roger Vane, they don't send warnings unless they're serious. That text wasn't a threat, it was a courtesy. They're telling you they already know everything about you, where you eat, where you sleep, where Julia goes to school. Julia. Her name in his mouth made my chest tighten. She needs to know, I said. I already called her this morning, before I called you. She's staying with a friend for a few days. She thinks it's a routine precaution. I didn't tell her everything. You should have let me do that. You would have scared her. She should be scared. Oscar leaned forward, forearms on the table, voice dropping low. So should you. That's my point. Scared and smart, not scared and stupid. There's a difference, and right now, I need you on the right side of it. I picked up my coffee. It had gone cold. I drank it anyway because I needed something to do with my hands. Outside the window, Western Avenue was waking up. A delivery truck double-parked across the street. A woman walking a dog that was too big for the leash. Everything ordinary. Everything completely indifferent to the fact that my life had been gutted like a fish. Tell me about Holt, the lawyer. Oscar sat back. He'd done his homework. I could tell by the way he organized it before he spoke, the way he always did when something had kept him up at night. Roger A. Holt, 61 years old. Born in Evanston, actually. North Shore kid, old money family. Went to Northwestern Law. Built his firm over 30 years into something serious. White-collar defense, primarily. Securities fraud, wire fraud cases. He doesn't just defend people accused of financial crimes, Matt. He's made a career of making those cases disappear before they reach trial. How many cases? 47 federal prosecutions in the last 20 years where Holt was defense counsel. 43 either dismissed, reduced to nothing, or acquitted. The other 4, his clients served minimal time, came out with most of their assets intact. That's not a lawyer. That's a fixer. That's exactly what he is. And here's what's interesting. About 60% of his clients over the last decade have had some connection, direct or indirect, with financial fraud operations. Not always prosecuted, sometimes just investigated then quietly dropped. His name keeps appearing at the edge of things, never in the middle, always at the edge. Like a cleanup crew. Like the man you call when the cleanup crew needs cleaning up. I turned that over in my mind. A man like that doesn't just appear on Thora Vane's legal team by accident. You don't get Roger A. Holt standing in a federal holding room at 2 in the morning unless someone with real power made a call. So Roger Vane, the con man, my Alexander, he works for Holt? Oscar tilted his head slightly. We don't know that yet. Could be Holt is just a hired gun. Could be the relationship goes deeper. What we know is that Holt's firm has a shell company registered in Delaware, totally standard, nothing unusual on the surface. But that shell company shares a registered agent with 2 of the offshore accounts we traced your money to before the trail went cold. I set my mug down very carefully. My money went through Holt's shell company? We think so. We can't prove it yet. The layers are deep enough that proving it would take a grand jury and about 18 months of financial forensics. I don't have 18 months, Oscar. I have a daughter in nursing school and a mortgage and 31 years of work that is currently sitting in an account I will never see again. I know. So what do we do? Oscar was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window at the street. When he looked back at me, something had shifted in his face. Not the fraud investigator anymore, just my brother. He said, "There's a woman. Her name is Olivia Cross. She's a forensic accountant, used to work IRS criminal investigation, left about 4 years ago, runs private now. She's traced money through structures that would make your head spin. If anyone can crack Holt's shell layers fast, it's her. Can you trust her? She's the one who first flagged the connection between Holt's registered agent and your accounts. She came to me, Matt. I didn't go looking for her." I thought about that. Why would she do that? She doesn't know me. Oscar looked at me steadily. She knows Holt. Her husband ran a small investment firm about 6 years ago. Good man, honest business. Holt's network ran a version of what they ran on you, different actors, same playbook. Her husband lost everything, spent 2 years trying to prove what happened. Oscar paused. He died before he could. The diner noise seemed to fade out around me. "Heart attack," Oscar said quietly. 51 years old. Distress. He stopped. Let the sentence finish itself. I understood then why Olivia Cross had come to my brother without being asked. She wasn't doing this for money. She was doing it because she'd been sitting on her own kitchen floor once, just like me, and nobody had come through that door to help her. "Set up the meeting," I said. We met her that same afternoon, a wine bar on Dearborn Street, the kind of place where the lunch crowd clears out by 2 and the after-work crowd doesn't arrive until 5. An empty window in the middle of the day where 3 people could sit in a corner booth and talk without being overheard. Olivia Cross was not what I expected. I don't know exactly what I expected. Maybe someone harder, maybe. Someone who looked like she'd been sharpened by grief into something angular and cold. But she was calm, composed in the way that people get when they've already survived the worst thing, when there's nothing left to be afraid of because the fear already came and took everything it wanted. She was maybe 50, dark hair going silver at the temples. She shook my hand like she meant it and looked at me the way people rarely look at you, like she actually saw me sitting there. "I'm sorry about your money, and I'm sorry about your wife." My wife made her choices. She did, simply. No performance of sympathy, just acknowledgement. I appreciated that more than I can explain. She opened her laptop and turned it toward me. Columns of numbers, account strings, transaction dates, a language I don't speak, but she translated it without making me feel stupid. "Your $2 million entered a holding account in the Caymans within 6 hours of the transfer. From there, it was split. 40% moved to an account registered to a logistics company in Malta, 60% to a private trust in Luxembourg. The Malta account is a dead end, deliberately structured that way. But the Luxembourg trust," she tapped the screen, "has made 3 outbound transfers in the last 8 weeks. 2 to accounts I can't crack yet, 1 to a real estate LLC registered in Illinois." "Illinois," I said. "Here? 40 minutes from where we're sitting." Oscar leaned in. "What's the LLC?" Olivia looked at both of us. "It purchased a house 6 days ago. A house, Lake Forest, right on the water. $3.2 million cash." The room went very still. "Someone bought a house with my money," I said. "With part of your money, combined with money from at least 2 other victims we've identified. But yes." She paused. "And Matt, the deed was signed 6 days ago. That means whoever bought it is likely still in the area, still close." I looked at Oscar. He was already reaching for his phone. The property records took Oscar 11 minutes to pull. When he turned his screen toward me, I read the name on the deed twice. It wasn't Roger Vane. It wasn't Thora. It wasn't Holt. It was a name I recognized, someone I had shaken hands with, someone who had sat at a table with me and smiled like they were doing me a favor. And underneath the name, listed as co-owner, right of survivorship, was Willa Ford, my wife, still using my name. "Don't do anything stupid." That's what Oscar said when he dropped me at my house that night. He said it the way you say something when you already know the person you're saying it to has stopped listening. His mouth was still moving, but I was already somewhere else. Already standing on the shore of a decision I hadn't quite made yet, but could feel myself walking toward, the way you feel a drop in temperature before a storm actually hits. I told him I was going to sleep. I didn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen until 2 a.m. with a glass of water I never touched and looked at the chair where Willie used to sit and tried to locate the exact moment it all went wrong. The precise Tuesday or Thursday or Sunday morning when the woman across from me at breakfast stopped being my wife and became something else entirely. An actress who'd already memorized her exit lines. I kept looking for the seam, the place where the real thing ended and the performance began, and I couldn't find it. That's what made it so hard to breathe. Not the money, the seamlessness of it. 11 years of marriage, and she'd been so good that I couldn't find a single moment that felt false. Which either meant she was extraordinary at lying, or that some part of what we had was real, and she'd chosen to bury it anyway. I'm not sure which one is worse. At 2:14 a.m., I went to the garage and got in my truck. Lake Forest is 40 minutes north of the city on a night with no traffic. Old money suburb, the kind of place where the houses sit so far back from the road you can barely see them through the trees. Where the streets don't have sidewalks because nobody walks anywhere. Where the silence at night is so complete it feels deliberate, like the neighborhood itself is trying to keep a secret. I didn't have the exact address, but Olivia had described the property. Lakefront, private drive, a gray stone house built in the 1920s with a boathouse that hadn't been used in years. I drove the lakeshore road slowly with my headlights on low, looking. I found it in 20 minutes. The lights were on inside. Ground floor, warm yellow through tall windows. The kind of light that means someone is awake and comfortable and at home. There were 2 cars in the drive. One I didn't recognize. One I did. Willa's car. White Volvo with the dent in the rear quarter panel she'd been meaning to get fixed for 2 years. I'd offered to take it in for her a dozen times. She'd always said she'd handle it herself. I parked on the road, sat there with the engine running, looking at those lit windows and my wife's car in the driveway of a house my money helped buy. I want to tell you I felt rage. Rage would have been clean. Rage would have been simple. What I actually felt was something closer to grief, mixed with a cold, clarifying kind of fury. Not hot, not loud, but very still. The feeling of a door closing somewhere deep inside you that you know will not open again. I took out my phone and called Oscar. He answered on the second ring. He'd been awake. Of course he'd been awake. "I'm outside the Lake Forest property," I said. Silence. "Matt, I'm not going in. I'm just sitting here. Come home." "Tell me what we're going to do, Oscar. Tell me there's a plan. Tell me that what Olivia found is enough to do something with because I am sitting outside a $3 million house that my money helped buy, and I need you to give me something, or I am going to walk up to that front door and knock on it, and I genuinely do not know what happens after that." He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Not the careful, measured investigator voice, just Oscar. "I called Olivia after I dropped you. She's been working since 4 o'clock this afternoon. She cracked the Malta account." I gripped the phone tighter. "It's not a dead end anymore. The money that went to Malta, it passed through a series of transfers and landed in an operating account for a property management company. That company is registered in Illinois, Matt. It has a physical address, a real office, and it has 3 listed principals." "Who?" "Roger Vane, Thora Vane." He paused. "And Roger A. Holt." There it was. Not at the edge anymore. In the middle. His name, his signature, his fingerprints on the actual mechanism of what they'd done to me, and God knows how many others. "That's enough," I said. "That's the connection you needed." "It's close. Olivia is still building the chain. We need one more link to make it airtight, something that connects Holt directly to the fraudulent transfers rather than just to the company that received them. But we're close, Matt, genuinely close. A few more days." I looked at those warm yellow windows, thought about Willa inside, comfortable, maybe pouring herself a glass of wine, maybe already asleep in a bedroom that cost more than most people's entire retirement. "Oscar," I said, Who's the third name on the deed? You said Willa was listed as co-owner. Who's the primary? Another pause, longer this time. We need to talk about that in person. Tell me now. Matt, tell me right now. He exhaled slowly, the sound of a man choosing between two difficult things and picking the one he can live with. The primary owner, he said, the name on the LLC, it's listed as a trust. The trust is called the Holt-Vane Family Trust. He stopped. But the trust has a named beneficiary, an individual, someone designated to inherit the full asset in the event of the trust dissolving. Who is it? Her name is Rita Holt. She's 26 years old, and according to the records Olivia pulled, she's Roger A. Holt's daughter. I stared at the house. Holt has a daughter living in that house. We think so, yes. With Willa? Matt, we think Rita Holt may have been involved from the beginning. Not just Thora, not just Vane, Holt's own daughter, running point on the recruiting side. We think she may have been the one who first made contact with Willa, maybe years ago, maybe before you even knew anything was wrong. I thought about Willa's friends I'd never met, the yoga class she'd started 3 years ago, the women she'd occasionally mentioned by name, Rita once or twice, someone she'd called funny, easy to be around. I'd never asked to meet her. I'd never thought to. Oscar, I said slowly, Rita Holt was Willa's friend. Yes. She was placed there, in her life, to turn her. That's what we believe. I sat with that for a long moment, the depth of it, the patience of it. Not weeks of planning, years. Someone looked at my marriage and saw a vulnerability and sent a person in, a real person, a friend, someone she laughed with and trusted, specifically to widen that crack until the whole thing split. They hadn't just stolen my money. They'd stolen my wife before I even knew she was being taken. I put the truck in drive. I'm coming home, I said. Good, Oscar said, relief audible in one word. But Oscar, tomorrow morning I want to be in a room with Olivia and I want to know every single thing she has, every account, every transfer, every name, all of it. I'll set it up. And I want you to find out everything there is to know about Julia's school schedule for the next 2 weeks, and I want someone watching her, not a courtesy call, actual eyes. Already done, he said quietly, since yesterday. I pulled away from the curb slowly, didn't look back at the house, didn't let myself look at the lit windows or the white Volvo with the dented quarter panel. But at the end of the private drive, just before I turned onto the main road, my headlights swept across the tree line at the edge of the property. And for just a second, barely a second, the length of a breath, I saw someone standing there, still, watching. A woman, dark coat, face I couldn't make out in the dark. By the time I'd registered what I was seeing, she was gone, back into the trees, into the dark, like she'd never been there at all. I drove home with both hands tight on the wheel and one thought running laps in my skull. Thora Vane wasn't in Lisbon. She was here. She'd been watching the house, and now she'd been watching me watch it. She was there, Oscar, standing in the trees watching me. He didn't say I told you so. That's the thing about Oscar. He never does. He just went quiet in the way that means he's already 3 steps ahead, already moving pieces I can't see yet. How long ago? 20 minutes. Go inside, lock the door. Don't open it for anyone until I call you back. He hung up before I could argue. Olivia was at my kitchen table by 7 a.m. Laptop open, coffee untouched, the look of a woman who hadn't slept but didn't need you to know it. Oscar sat beside her. I stood at the counter because I was too wired to sit. She didn't waste time. I found the last link. She turned the laptop toward us. A single transaction, clean, direct, damning. The kind of thing that's invisible until someone who knows exactly what they're looking for decides to look. Holt signed off on the final transfer personally, not through the LLC, not through the trust. His own signature on a wire authorization routing $400,000. Your money, Matt, traceable back to your original transfer into an account held in his personal name in the Channel Islands. That's not a shell. That's him. Oscar leaned forward. That's him, Olivia confirmed. His name, his authorization code, his account. She looked at me. He got sloppy, or arrogant. Probably arrogant. Men like Holt stop being careful because nothing has ever touched them. Until now, Oscar said. He made 2 calls. I stood in my kitchen and listened to my brother dismantle the architecture of what had been done to me, 1 phone call at a time. The first call was to a federal prosecutor he trusted, a woman named Julia, different Julia, the kind of federal prosecutor who picks up before the second ring when Oscar calls because she knows he doesn't call unless it's real. The second call I didn't fully follow. Names I didn't know, jurisdictions, language about freezing assets before counsel could move them. When he hung up, he nodded once. That was enough. Roger A. Holt was arrested at his office on Michigan Avenue at 11:40 that same morning. I know because Oscar sent me a photograph. Not gloating, just factual. Just so I could see it with my own eyes and know it was real. Gray suit, hands behind his back. The expression of a man who has spent 30 years believing consequence was something that happened to other people. Roger Vane was picked up at O'Hare 2 hours later, trying to board a flight to Dublin under a different name. Thora was already in federal custody. They'd had eyes on the Lake Forest property since Oscar's first call. She'd walked out of the tree line just after dawn, straight into 2 agents who'd been waiting in the cold for 4 hours. Willa was taken in for questioning that afternoon. I didn't watch that part. I didn't need to. Rita Holt surrendered voluntarily through her father's now-collapsed legal team. 26 years old. She'd been running the recruitment operation since she was 22. 4 years of building fake friendships, identifying fractures in marriages, inserting herself into women's lives and widening the cracks until something broke. When they walked her out of the Lake Forest house, she looked young in a way that might have made you feel sorry for her if you thought about it wrong. I made sure not to think about it wrong. 3 weeks later, Olivia sat across from me in my kitchen again. Different energy this time. The case file closed on the table between us instead of open. Asset recovery, she said. It won't be everything. It's never everything. But between the Channel Islands account, the Lake Forest property seizure, and what they pulled from Vane's Malta accounts, you're looking at recovering somewhere between 60 and 70%. 60 to 70% of $2 million. Not nothing, not whole, somewhere in between, which is where most true things live. And the rest? I asked. Gone. Spent. Hidden deep enough that finding it would cost more than it's worth. She paused. I'm sorry, Matt. That part's just true. I nodded. I'd already made a kind of peace with it on one of those 2 a.m. nights in my kitchen. The money was a wound. It would scar, but it wouldn't kill me. What about you? I asked. What does this do for you? She looked at the table for a moment. When she looked up, her eyes were steady but not dry. My husband spent 2 years trying to prove what they did to him. He couldn't. Nobody believed him. He died thinking he'd failed. She pressed her lips together briefly. This doesn't bring him back, but it means what happened to him is part of the record now. Official. Real. Holt's name attached to it in federal court documents that will exist forever. She paused. That matters to me. I needed it to matter to someone. It matters, I said. She nodded once, closed her laptop, stood up. At the door, she turned back. For what it's worth, most people in your position either fall apart or go quiet. You didn't do either. I had good people around me. You let them help you, she said. That's rarer than you think. Oscar took me to dinner that Friday. Same diner on Western Avenue. Corner booth. Bad coffee. The Sinatra station still playing low behind the counter like nothing had changed, like the world was still the same shape it was when we'd sat there weeks ago with a photograph and a folder and the beginning of something neither of us fully understood yet. He ordered the same thing he always orders. So did I. For a while, we didn't talk about any of it. We talked about his kids, about a leak in my garage roof I'd been ignoring, about whether the Cubs had any real shot this year, or if we were doing that thing again where we let ourselves believe too early. Then he looked at me across the table and said, "How are you actually doing?" And I thought about it honestly. Not the answer you give people when they ask how you're doing, the real one. 31 years of work, a marriage that turned out to be a long con, a house that felt like a stage set now that the performance was over, a daughter who still didn't know the full story and who I'd need to sit down with soon and tell the truth to, all of it, because she deserved that, even if it was hard to hear. Money coming back, not all of it, most of it, and somehow still here, still at this table, still drinking bad coffee with my brother on a Friday night. "I'm okay," I said. "Not fine, but okay." Oscar nodded like that was the exact right answer. "That's all you need to be right now," he said. I sold the house in April. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. Every room in it had the wrong memory attached to it now. Not all bad, some of them genuinely good, which was almost harder. I didn't want to spend the next 10 years walking past the kitchen table and remembering both things at once. I found a smaller place 2 towns over, a house that nobody had a history in yet, a house where the memories would be mine to make from scratch. The garage is bigger. I've been thinking about the truck, thinking about whether there's any part of me that still wants to work with my hands, still wants to build something, not necessarily a company, maybe something smaller, something that's just mine without the weight of 30 years of momentum behind it telling me what it has to be. I don't have the answer to that yet, but I have time to find it, which is something I didn't think I'd be able to say 3 months ago. Julia came for dinner last Sunday. She knows most of it now, the fraud, Willa, Holt, all of it. She sat across from me and listened and didn't cry, which told me everything I need to know about the woman she's becoming. At the end, she reached across the table and put her hand over mine and said, "Dad, you didn't do anything wrong." 4 words. I've been turning them over ever since. Because the truth is, I did do something wrong. I trusted too easily. I wanted to be loved too much. I signed when I should have waited. Those things are true. I own them. But she meant something different. She meant the kind of wrong that makes you a bad person, a weak person, a person who deserved what happened. And on that, she was right. I didn't deserve it. Neither did Olivia's husband. Neither does anyone who sits at their own kitchen table one ordinary Tuesday morning and believes that the person across from them is who they say they are. That's not stupidity. That's just being human. The hard part is deciding what to do after you find out the world isn't as safe as you needed it to be. I'm still figuring that out, but I'm figuring it out at a table that's mine, in a house that's clean, with a daughter who drove 40 minutes on a Sunday just to sit with me. That's not nothing. That's not nothing at all.